Fridays at the stick. From who's got it better than us to brick by brick. It's always the 49ers way, from off-season to game day. Yeah, we talk back. It's the 49ers Cutback.
It's 49ers Cutback podcast time. Welcome to the show, everyone. Time to talk about training camp battles at tight end. And this one's going to be interesting because I'm not just going to talk about tight ends, but I'm also going to talk about the quarterback position as well. I'm kind of putting these two together to make, one episode and talk about the positions because there's interesting battles and decisions to be made, but there's not the depth of the decisions to be made like some of the other positions. But when you look at tight end, this is one of the most unique positions for the San Francisco 49ers because it starts with the best tight end in football in George Kittle, right? George Kittle does it all for the San Francisco 49ers, and he has since he came to San Francisco from Iowa in 2017. George Kittle has done everything that this regime has asked him to do. Everything that Kyle Shanahan has asked him to do, he's not only done, but he's excelled at. And we saw that continue last year, and that's why the 49ers were willing to give George Kittle a contract extension that could mean his career is going to end in San Francisco, which is the ultimate goal for the 49ers and for George Kittle, because it's likely going to be a Hall of Fame career. Now, the interesting part about George Kittle is he's a complete tight end. He can do it all. The 49ers located him in their very first draft under John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. That tight end that could just do it all. Catch the ball, run block. He's effective in every manner. And with that sort of hit at tight end, you almost expect the 49ers to be able to hit again, right? At linebacker, they've been able to hit multiple times, whether it's Fred Warner or it's Ben Dre Greenlaw or Azeez Al-Shire, who they got as an undrafted free agent. They've had multiple hits at the position. And so when you start seeing them hit at certain positions, you think, wow, you find an all-pro there, you're probably likely to find a very good player at least. Well, that hasn't been the case at tight end. Now, the 49ers have found guys who have unique skills that are very good, right? Charlie Warner, an elite run blocker. That was something he did, but they thought he had more upside when it came to catching the football, playing, running routes, being able to be a dual threat the way George Kittle was. That did not happen. That did not materialize. Now, he was, though, an outstanding blocker that moved this offense forward accordingly. Now, when he left last year, that left a huge hole for the 49ers at tight end. And the 49ers have been looking to fill that. And last year, they tried to sign a tight end from Detroit Lions. They tried to sign an offer sheet. They were kind of panicking a little bit when they lost Charlie Warner. I don't think they were expecting to lose Charlie Warner and not be able to get anything back as far as the blocking tight end. Then they, thought, well, maybe we can get a guy and bring in a guy like Eric Saubert, who's had a decent career, had played for the Houston Texans the year before, coached by a coach familiar with the system. Maybe he'll translate. That didn't work. They've tried Tyler Kroft. That didn't work. 49ers have tried multiple tight ends throughout the last couple of years to try to find that guy. They just haven't been able to find that balance. They even drafted multiple tight ends. In one draft, Cameron Latu, and then they drafted Braden Willis. And they're hoping, right, it's worked before. If we hit two guys in the draft, one of them is going to pan out, right? For every Trey Sermon, there's an Elijah Mitchell. For every TDP, there's a Jordan Mason. It has been something that has worked in the past, right? Every Ambry Thomas, there's a De'Amon Lenore. A good philosophy. You hit on the position twice, more than likely one of them is going to work out. And 49ers just did that again in this draft. They got Jordan James, and then they signed Corey Kiner as an undrafted free agent. So it is a method the 49ers have used. But it maybe didn't work with either tight end. Cameron Latu, they moved on from him. He was so green and just never really worked out. Everyone thought he was further along than he was. He just couldn't pick up the offense. He couldn't translate his game to the NFL, and he's still trying to make that happen right now on a practice squad. And so Latu's not the answer. But is Braden Willis? Is this the year he finally steps up and becomes that guy the 49ers were hoping he could be? Well, there's a couple other unique guys to talk about as well. We're going to talk about all that and more in this episode. So please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. And if you were going to bet with Bet Online. Bet Online continues to be your number one source for all your sports betting action. And with baseball season in full swing and football season around the corner, Bet Online has more ways to stay in on the action, the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting. From MLB, UFC to tennis and NFL futures, Bet Online remains your choice for sports wagering info. In between games, head over to the Bet Online casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. Head to the website today and take advantage of their industry-leading VIP program with level-up bonuses and weekly cash boosts. Bet Online, the game starts here. So when you look at the 49ers tight end room, we know George Kittle's at the top. And I brought up Charlie Warner moving on, and that meant that the 49ers were really void of a certain type of player, a run-blocking tight end. So one of the first things they did in free agency was go find that guy, Luke Farrell, tight end from Jacksonville. And I feel like the 49ers are very comfortable with Farrell. Now, Farrell is not as dominant a blocker as Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner not just would win, but would dominate at the point of attack. He created extra space in the run game. That's not Luke Farrell's game. But what Luke Farrell does do is he does occupy blockers. He gets in front of them. He makes sure that he creates an opportunity for the running back to get there. He just doesn't generate monster holes. That's not how he goes about his game, but he is effective. So the 49ers have found their effectiveness again with a blocking tight end. So one thing has been answered that they needed because they were missing that in their offense last year without Charlie Warner. And you can easily point to the 49ers offensive woes, especially in the red zone, and say, hey, Christian McCaffrey was out. And he was a big reason why they were so good at the end of 2022 and in how good they were in 2023 in the red zone. Over 68% of the time, they scored touchdowns, and you'd be correct. But the other commonality was the fact that Charlie Warner was very good in those situations. They would go to their personnel settings, 22 personnel, sometimes 12 personnel, get him out there with George Kittle and allow him to be that guy that would move behind the line of scrimmage and get a lot of key blocks, traps, kick guys out, and create opportunities in the run game that the 49ers very much feasted on. So Charlie Warner's loss was felt hugely during the season last year, both in short yardage, in the red zone, and just in the normal running game. So McCaffrey, 100%, definitely missed. Charlie Warner, definitely missed. That was a big element to the 49ers' struggles in the run game. And I know there's more elements like Trent Williams and his injury and things like that, but Warner's impact and void in the offense was definitely felt. So Luke Farrell coming in is a very positive thing for the 49ers, and he establishes himself as tight end 2. He's going to be out there for your 12 personnel, and 12 personnel, for those who don't know, means 1 running back, 2 tight ends. Your 22 personnel, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends. He'll be out there for those. And so the 49ers have an opportunity here to get this run game reestablished. But also what Luke Farrell does is he's going to give George Kittle the opportunity to not have to stay in on some of these obvious pass downs and be able to go out for passes. If you have a 12 personnel, now you could send Kittle out for routes, and Farrell could stay in and block if you need that addition to your blocking scheme. You need that help, offensive player. You can use Luke Farrell. So it does help George Kittle a lot. Charlie Warner was effective in that type of situation, and now with Luke Farrell, the 49ers can have that effectiveness again. But it's not a complete player again, right? The 49ers haven't been able to target that complete player, find that complete player in a long time, since George Kittle in 2017. So once again, it's a guy who's limited when it comes to catching the football. And then when you look at the guys who are going to be competing at tight end behind Luke Farrell, because I do believe it goes George Kittle, Luke Farrell, and then it is a complete cluster of individuals who are competing to potentially be tight end 3. And tight end 3 is one of the most unique elements to this team because tight ends, they play a multitude of roles. Number one, when you have a third tight end, they could be impactful if you get a George Kittle injury, because I talked about Luke Farrell not very good when it comes to receiving the football. So you'd like to have a receiving threat that you could combine with Luke Farrell if George Kittle's out. And George Kittle has been a warrior for his time in the league, but it's known that he's probably going to miss 1 or 2 games during a season because something's going to come up, some sort of nagging injury. He plays through a lot. He plays through a lot of physical limitations because he just gets beat up in the way he plays. He's basically an extra offensive lineman and an extra wide receiver. So he gives hits, he takes hits. It's just how it's going to be. But Luke Farrell doesn't, in my opinion, have the ability to step up and be tight end 1 instead of George Kittle being out. So I think that there needs to be somebody capable of catching the football. That's going to be a key element to these guys that are competing. And there's 4 guys competing, and they're all over the map as far as experience and development. And that's going to be one of the key things watching at training camp, because some of these guys are green. And then there's other guys who have been around a little bit. And one of those guys that's been around for a while has been Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley's going to be 30 years old now, and been in the league for a while, playing for the 49ers. And last year he went to the Atlanta Falcons as well. He didn't play a lot, very limited in his snaps last year for the Atlanta Falcons. Didn't have big time opportunities out there. Didn't really play a lot of snaps. He had 17 total pass snaps last year, only 1 target. It resulted in a catch for 5 yards. He ran 15 routes on those 17 plays. So it just wasn't a very much opportunity, but we've seen this be a steady thing for Ross Dwelley over the last several years, that he just hasn't had as many opportunities as he did when he first came in the league. So undrafted free agent to the 49ers in 2018. And, he was with the 49ers through 2023, but we've seen his consistency in the plays that he played go down, and they just didn't play him as much. He wasn't as effective in blocking, and really besides his 2019 and 2020 season, he hasn't been very effective in the league. So in 2019, he played a lot in place of Kyle Juszczyk, who got injured. He played some for George Kittle. He started 6 games. He had 15 catches for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. His best season was 2020, where George Kittle missed an extensive amount of time. He started 9 games, had 19 catches for 245 yards and 1 touchdown. So that is his biggest season, and what he, and his biggest numbers was in 2020. So it's been a long time since Ross Dwelley has been effective. And I understand the 49ers bringing Ross Dwelley back. In fact, I think they almost had to. When we're talking about these other guys, Ross Dwelley's at least a consistent. He understands the offense. He understands what to do within the offense. And he's also a guy that can go compete on special teams. And you need those type of guys, because the other guys that we're going to talk about that position do not have any of the veteran ability of Ross Dwelley. Ross Dwelley's been around. This is one of those situations where Ross Dwelley is kind of competing against a bunch of guys who, if they hit their potential, they're better players than Ross Dwelley. But if they don't, Ross Dwelley's going to get the job anyways because he's more consistent. And a guy like Braden Willis, for instance, the 49ers had such high hopes for. And he's going to be competing with Ross Dwelley, and he's been doing a lot of special teams over the last couple seasons. And here we're going into year 3. But last year, Braden Willis did not make the 49ers' initial 53-man roster. They waived him. That is one thing to remember. They waived him, and he cleared waivers. He cleared waivers and came back to the 49ers practice squad. Now, eventually they brought him back to the roster, but the fact that he wasn't claimed, I think, says a lot about what the league believes of Braden Willis. And how about Braden Willis? He played less pass snaps last year than Ross Dwelley did. He played 11. He had 2 targets. He ran 9 routes, and he had 1 drop on those. He just hasn't been able to get anything going. We haven't seen the Braden Willis that we saw when he played at Oklahoma. That Braden Willis was effective getting up the seam and making catches. That Braden Willis had the ability to create yak opportunities and yak yards in the passing game. And yes, he hasn't gotten very many opportunities, but he hasn't earned very many opportunities as well. I mean, you go out there and you get some of these routes and then you drop the football. That's not effective. And that was something he did all through preseason as well. So can Braden Willis finally take that step forward? Does he finally understand this offense well enough that he can go out there and execute in the passing game? Because I do believe he needs to make some plays with his hands to make this roster. He needs to go outplay Ross Dwelley. Or the 49ers are just going to go back to what's familiar, and they'll just go back to Ross Dwelly and say, you know what? At least we know he knows what he's supposed to do, and if we throw him the football, he's going to catch it. He might not get any yards after that, but he's going to catch the football. And going back to Old Faithful, knowing that you can trust him, your safety blanket, that's more important for a quarterback like a quarterback like Brock Purdy, being able to throw to Ross Dwelly. And because you've seen Ross Dwelly start in place of George Kittle, you know he can be semi-effective. It's not going to blow the doors off, right? He's not going to do anything great. And that was years ago. Is he even the same player? That's a question mark. But at least you've seen it. You haven't seen it from Braden Willis, which is a real struggle. So Braden Willis is going to go out there and compete for a roster spot. But in his 2 years in San Francisco, he's played in 17 games over those 2 seasons and literally done nothing on offense. There's 0 stats, not a single catch, nothing. He has been completely ineffective. Now, he's made tackles on special teams. Last year, he had 3 tackles overall, 1 solo tackle in his time on special teams. So he's not even super effective on special teams either, unfortunately. This is the thing about Braden Willis. This is his time. He's got to make it happen right now. But who else is competing for this job? Well, how about Jake Tunges? And Jake Tunges had actually signed with the 49ers in 2023. Towards the end of the season, he signed. He was on the practice squad down the stretch. And Tunges comes from Cal Berkeley. And he's an interesting guy because he had originally went to Chicago Bears as an undrafted free agent, and they were playing him at fullback. So they were fooling around with that idea. He even got on the field a little bit and played in 4 games, but they never threw him the ball, never really had him do anything. He did catch a ball in preseason for a touchdown, but besides that, there were just really no opportunities for Tunges. Well, he made the initial 53-man roster last year. And that raised eyebrows, me included. I did my 53-man roster predictions. I did not have Jake Tunges making it. I'm just going to be open. I didn't see enough at training camp to make me think he was going to make that team over Braden Willis. There was definitely a player there that I liked versatility-wise. I thought, well, with his fullback background, maybe if Kyle Juszczyk got hurt, that would make sense. But the guy barely played. He played a little bit of special teams. He had 2 tackles last year on special teams. But other than that, he was not out there playing tight end. You know what I mean? He just wasn't getting these reps. Jake Tunges just basically was on the 49ers 53. Maybe they were developing him. They were excited about, his potential to develop. But the guy had 0 pass snaps last year. 0. He did not have any opportunities to block, to catch the football. He had just had no production, no opportunity on the field. He was basically just on the 49ers 53-man roster. And they've elected to bring him back. So you have Braden Willis, who does no catches in his career. You have Jake Tunges, who has no catches in his career. You have Braden Willis, who's been hit and miss when it comes to run blocking. You have Jake Tunges, who we didn't even see do it last year. These guys are competing for tight end 3 with Ross Dwelly. And then there is the wild card of wild cards in one of the most interesting guys since last year when they signed him as an undrafted free agent, and that is Mason Pline. And depending on, who talks about Pline, you get kind of a variety of different opinions. One thing I will say about Mason Pline is when you look at potential, he has a ton of potential. When you look at the size, his transformation going from playing basketball to playing football, it hasn't been a long process. So development was going to take time. So with him and development, you completely understand. This is not a guy that played Division I football in the Big 12 Conference. This isn't a guy that played in the SEC. He's a guy that played lower level football in college, translated from another sport, and is trying to figure out football in the NFL. But when you look at the upside and his ability to potentially be a receiving threat, that is something that definitely trends and tracks with what the 49ers need. They need a guy that can make plays in the passing game, that if George Kittle's out, you could connect him with Luke Farrell, right? Farrell handle a lot of the blocking situations. Mason Pline come in to catch the football, like that tracks. We haven't seen any of that from Braden Willis. I do believe Braden Willis has the potential, by the way, to be a pass catcher in the NFL. He just hasn't really done it yet. But Jake Tunges, I don't know. I didn't see enough at training camp, and maybe there were guys who did see a lot at training camp last year out of Jake Tunges. I didn't see it in my times there, and I wasn't there every single practice. So, maybe he was showing up and showing out when I wasn't there. But I think it's so unique because you have Mason Pline, who definitely has a potential, but how long is it going to take him to develop, right? It's been a full season. Last year in preseason, I knew Mason Pline wasn't going to make the team because he didn't play very much in preseason last year. He played mainly special team snaps, got out there a couple of times, no targets, no catches. So there was going to be a long-term development process for Pline. Now, where is he at? Is he a guy that picks up things extremely fast? Well, maybe. If that's the case, maybe he's in on this competition this year. And I think that it's completely interesting the way they're going to do it. Because Ross Dwelley, I think right now is kind of the thought to be third tight end, with the other three guys having to prove that they can overtake him. The presumed starters, Ross Dwelley, the other three guys are trying to prove they need more opportunities. Braden Willis has gotten the most opportunities, and Mason Pline probably should get the most opportunities now just to see where he's at. So this is going to be interesting. Now, I do believe that one thing that helps Braden Willis and Jake Tunges and Ross Dwelley over Mason Pline, and something that Mason Pline has to deal with, is the other three guys have been able to play fullback. And the reason I say that helps is their versatility to fill in for Kyle Juszczyk in a pinch is going to be something the 49ers would love to have from their third tight end, a utility type thing. Now, if Luke Farrell can prove to do that, it makes it a little less valuable, right? But that is an element to help a player make this team. Now, Mason Pline, to make this team, he also is going to have to be a very effective pass catcher and also effective on special teams and able to help there. Your third tight end is going to be expected to help when it comes to playing the tight end or playing special teams. Now, I do not think the 49ers are keeping 4 tight ends. I don't. They are not keeping 4. In fact, last year on their initial 53, they kept 2 and then eventually brought back Eric Saubert, right? They kept George Kittle. They kept Jake Tunges. Eric Saubert was a vested veteran, which means he doesn't have to go through waivers. So he was released, not waived. He was released, and then he waited. And then once the 49ers were made their roster moves, they brought him back to the 53-man roster. So those are the types of roster gymnastics the 49ers can do. So I think Ross Dwelley right now sitting in the catbird seat, he has the best situation. We have to see stark improvement from Braden Willis catching the football and Jake Tunges. And Mason Pline is a complete wild card. No idea. I think in a perfect world, either, Braden Willis or Mason Pline proved to be a very effective pass catcher this season in training camp. Go out there and start making some plays, getting the attention of coaches, and these guys translate into the game. Then they work very well with what you got with George Kittle and Luke Farrell. I think having a pass-catching move tight end is the best situation for the 49ers. I also don't believe it's out of the question that the 49ers won't go grab another tight end off the scrap heap that's available or becomes available at some point. I don't think it's a guarantee that it's going to be one of these 4 guys, Ross Dwelley, Mason Pline, Braden Willis, Jake Tunges. I don't think it's a guarantee that it's one of those guys. So it's going to be interesting. Now, the quarterback position. And what's interesting with quarterback is there's really not a training camp battle this year, per se. I think that what it comes down to, because I believe Curtis Rourke is going to stay on the PUP list for probably most of the season, if not all the season. I think when it comes to Mac Jones for Tanner Mordecai, it's not really a competition. I think Mac Jones is going to be the unquestioned backup quarterback or Brock Purdy. I don't think Tanner Mordecai can push him. And I know there's people that are high on Mordecai. I thought Mordecai was inconsistent last year at training camp, but I'm one of those ones that believe you can make improvements during a season. You can make improvements during the offseason. And who knows how good Tanner Mordecai will be this year. But I think Mordecai is more competing with the idea of having a third quarterback on the roster. With some of the roster decisions the 49ers are going to have to make, they are going to have to determine whether it's in their best interest to keep Tanner Mordecai on their active 53-man roster. Last season, they waived Tanner Mordecai. He made it to the practice squad. And they had three quarterbacks on their active roster. They've done that since 2022 when they had all the injuries. I believe that this could be a year the 49ers go back to having 2 quarterbacks on the active roster with Tanner Mordecai once again going to the practice squad, because they have in their back pocket that if something was to happen at the quarterback position, they have Curtis Rourke that they could bring back from the PUP list. So I think that Tanner Mordecai's got to impress the 49ers enough to make them believe that he can be on this 53-man roster. And he's a talented guy, big arm, a lot of athleticism. I think he's going to be fun during preseason to watch, the way he rifles it in there, some of the yards he's going to get creating with his legs, and he's going to have to go out there and produce. But I think one of the big elements to Tanner Mordecai making this 53-man roster is going to be, how does he operate this offense in time? What is he doing timing-wise? Is he on time with his throws? Is he hitting that back foot with the hitch and then letting it go? Those are going to be the key elements that help Tanner Mordecai make this team. So I don't think he's so much competing with Mac Jones as he's competing with the idea of keeping a third quarterback on the 53-man roster. So that's going to be one of the things that I'm excited to see at training camp as well. I think Brock Purdy and Mac Jones are locks to make this roster, and I think they're going to be, just going back and forth in the reps. I don't think there's a quarterback competition there. I don't want anyone to think that, because I don't think so. And I just think that they're very comfortable with that group. So Mordecai's got to prove it. It's going to be interesting. So what do you guys think? Who is going to make it at the tight end position for the 49ers? Is it going to be Ross Dwelley as tight end 3? Is it going to be one of these other individuals? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'm really curious. Is Tanner Mordecai got a shot to take Mac Jones' number 2 quarterback spot? Or, is he competing to see if he can be quarterback 3 and even on this roster? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're listening on audio platform, 49ers Cutback on Believe Network, please give it a 5-star rating. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online. The game starts here. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, stay safe. Remember, the right way is always the 49ers way.